Welcome everybody, and thank you so much for being here on the Personal Health Summit 2015. We're super excited to be having Lisa Garr on the show today. We've got an amazing group of experts, 30 experts from all over the globe that will bring amazing information towards us so that we can understand more about who we are and find out what's right for us to be happy and healthy. So a huge thank you to you for being here. That's the biggest commitment to your health that you can possibly make, is showing up for the sessions like you are, and being here to learn about all these amazing new tools and tips and techniques that all these amazing experts have to share with you on these calls. A huge thank you to our major sponsors, Ultimate Human Foundation, who are working tirelessly towards the elimination of chronic pain and disease from the planet. And a huge thank you to PH360, who is also a major sponsor, looking at the tangible ways that we can harness personalized health and understand more about what's right for us to be eating with the foods and exercising with sort of exercises, the climates, our social interactions, our mind, and many, many other different ways. So the biggest thank you out to you for being here. And without further ado, I'd love to introduce Lisa Garr to the show today. Lisa is the host of the Aware radio show in Southern California. Since 1999, Lisa's interviewed over 1,500 best-selling authors and experts in the field of health, healing, and spirituality and personal growth. She's considered an expert in the field of lifestyle and transformational media programming, and is committed to providing a message that inspires positive growth and change. In addition to being a sought-after MC, Lisa hosts her own TV show and popular online personal development teleseminar series. And Lisa's here today to talk to us about brain health and stress. Lisa, thank you so much for being here and welcome to the show.
I'm so happy to be on your show. Thank you so much, Matt, for inviting me.
It's beautiful. I'm very much looking forward to this call, Lisa, and I'd love to delve straight in, but hear first a little bit about your background and your history and how you actually got to doing what you're here today doing, and really understanding a bit about how the brain works and you know, how that landed you in the conversations that you're having at this current day.
Wow. Well, it's a little bit of a long story, but we've got time.
We've got time.
We've got time. I am a mountain biker, and I used to race the semi-pro circuit, which I love. You know, I love mountain biking. I love the mountains. I don't race anymore, but back in the day when I would race, we had some pretty brutal conditions in some of our races. The race I was in was it was a 7-race series, California State Mountain Biking Championship Series, and the 7th race was a double points race, and I was in 2nd place overall in the whole series. So I had, the stakes were high, but I still really enjoyed I just love being out there. I really love finding out what the body can do. And in this case, it was 108 degrees. It was really hot. It was about 5,000 feet of climbing, and it was about 27 miles. So it was a pretty strenuous race. And it was right before the finish line where you had to go through a descent, a switchback descent to get to the other, over a little bridge, and then there was the finish line. And I remember looking at the girl in front of me who was in 1st place, and I thought, gosh, how did I possibly catch her? I was just racing my own race, doing my own thing, exhausted, dehydrated. And I saw her and I said, how did I catch her? And I knew that I had already been able to pass her on the downhill. So I thought, okay, somehow I've got this. And it was like a sense of freedom. But that was the last thought that I had, because I passed out right there. I was riding still on the bike on the top of the mountain, and I must have just toppled over. And the first thing I must have hit was my helmet, because it shattered, fell off. And then I continued to roll down this hill. And when I came to, the bike was above me. And it was so confusing because I was so out of it. And I couldn't figure out how I was looking at this girl and then how my bike got above me. It was too much information, too confusing. And so I started to try to scramble up this hill, and there were a lot of pine trees around because it was in the mountains. So I remember slipping on these dead brown pine needles. And it was really significant because it's where I slipped in my stream of consciousness that was so significant about that. I might have been slipping on these needles, but I slipped into a complete different dimension, if you will. Another state, maybe it's called, but I just went into this unbelievable place of no pain and of a connection with all that is, a connection with everything. Myself, my being, my soul, and everything was one, truly the same. Have you ever seen the diagrams of the taurine energy where the energy goes? That's how I felt. My consciousness was the one same as the trees and the sky above me and myself, and it was just such a beautiful, expansive energy. It was just incredible, and it was so interesting because I didn't feel any pain. I mean, my body was in pain, but I was able to observe my body and watch the whole scene happen below me. There were medics rushing up to my body. They put my body on a stretcher. It was all very interesting. I
Wow.
wasn't there at all. But what was so interesting to me was the medics, I could feel them. I wasn't separate from them. I could feel their energy, their thoughts, their desire, their soul. Like my soul became their soul. It was their soul. There was no separation in that. And I don't think there is at all in anything that we do. And I think sometimes we go through life with these blinders on, thinking this is all there is. And we live in this place of our limited existence. And I know, because I've been there is a place of infinite possibilities. And it's not separate than us, it is us. It's just a matter of understanding that, and of consuming that and becoming that. So my body's sick and it's throwing up, and they airlifted it onto a helicopter and got me to this hospital. And I remember waking up again in the hospital room, and this man in the white coat was saying, "What's your name? What's your birth date? Where were you born? You know, the vitals, what they ask you." And I looked at him and I couldn't figure out how I got there, where I was. I was on a bike. And then I looked at him as if to say, "Well, my name's Lisa." But it wouldn't come out. It got stuck at my throat. And I panicked. I completely seized in that moment. I totally, completely forgot where I was, that expanded consciousness, that vastness. All of it got bottlenecked into my throat. And I started to completely panic. And I found out later that I had damaged the right prefrontal cortex of my brain, which is the language center, um, the cerebral cortex, memory center of my brain. I had caused severe brain damage from hitting my head multiple times on this fall. And in the hospital, they put 8 bags of saline into my body. I mean, I was really depleted, failing. And after a while of finally rehydrating my body, my language still didn't come back. And it was terrifying to me. And so, luckily, John was there, and you met my husband, John, at the time. He and I were broken up. We were in a relationship that was not working. I was not in the relationship, really. I wasn't available really at all. And it was the healing process that I went through as I recovered my brain and rebuilt, literally rebuilt my brain, that I realized what was important and what is important about relationship and meaning in life and expanded awareness in life. And that we now are married and have this wonderful child and cruising. It's just it was a completely transformational experience for me. And that's, when you asked, it's a long story. I
Wow.
meant it. A long story.
What a powerful story, Lisa. That was thank you for sharing that, and that's amazing. I'd love to take some translation from this story and see how we can apply it to some of the people listening on this call, because I mean, from where you've been to where you, like, that whole story and that whole transition, there's just so many important components to that story to be able to apply to so many people's lives. So could you pull some parts out of that you've been aware of, and whether it's from understanding consciousness and the collectiveness of all of us together, through the point of the importance of relationships and support? Like, please help us navigate through some of this and how we can apply, even just in your story. We could talk about this for the whole call, as to how we can apply some of these principles into our lives to help us transform our health and happiness.
I mean, I want to also talk about how I did heal the brain, but the important part of the consciousness, that is that we are just a thought process away from that expanded consciousness. It's not in another dimension or another planet. It's right here. It's all around us. It's just a matter of a state shift. And I looked up my experience, and I did have a classic near-death experience and so forth, but I don't really like to label it as such. I had this, the most important part for me was that I could come and go out of this state. And we can all do that. We can come and go in and out of this state of expanded awareness. Most of the time, it's great to be in it. Sometimes you really need to ground and get things done. But being in that space of just full um, awareness of the lack of boundaries between us and all that is. And I don't mean that you don't need to have boundaries and protect yourself. I just mean that our state of consciousness is interconnected. And it is, I mean, my mentor, my dear mentor, Wayne Dyer, passed away. I feel that he's in that space now of all that is. I mean, when I really want to try to tune in, that's where I get that our loved ones go, is into that infinite space. And if we could look at our life more from that perspective, we wouldn't be in so much survival with our health, with our wealth, and with our relationships. I really do think when we look at things in more of an expanded bird's eye view, if you will, it takes the little things and our trivial errors in life or hurdles that we have to go through, and it starts to expand them and widen them and give us more space from which to create from.
That's beautiful, Lisa. You're so eloquent with your words. I love the message you have to share with us. And I'd love to just to jump back, because you've left everybody hanging at the moment. The comments that are coming through about hanging, about what happened after you've got this big brain injury. You know, where did things go from there?
So I went through so interestingly enough, and anybody who has had a traumatic brain injury or any type of concussion, you know that the hospitals don't really know what to do with you. They sent me home. And I was broken and had a severe brain injury, and they didn't know that. I and anyone who has gone through this, and you have got into that place of survival and forgotten that you had the injury, or you're living in that cave still. There's a lot of symptoms that go with brain injuries. There's a massive fog. There's a lack of memory. There's a lack of organizational skills and abilities. A lot of forgetfulness, a lot of anger spikes because of the pressure in your head. I encourage people who, and your loved ones who don't know where you went, um, you're disconnected or distant from them. I encourage you to get some help and to look up some of the resources of traumatic brain injury effects and identify, because awareness is a big key to this, is understanding that it's not you. You have a swollen brain, and that there are many symptoms that go along with that that need attention, that need your attention. There's 3 specific ways that I healed my brain, and I'd love to share these with you all. The
Please.
first one is neurofeedback, and neurofeedback was great for me. I still have little lapses with my brain, but that'll get to one of the practices, and I'll share that with you. But the neurofeedback was where they put electrodes on your scalp, and then you play these brain games essentially with the computer, and you build things with your brain, and it's all a matter of a frequency that you send back and forth to this program, and then the frequency your brain matches sends back another frequency, and then you get a reward, which is, from, in my case, it was a little square of a hot air balloon. And then as I would send the higher frequencies and match the program, it would form into the bigger, beautiful, memorable picture of the balloon. But if I would not do that, if it would get distracted or go into a negative thought pattern, it would go to black. So the brain goes for the reward, right? And that's what it releases, the happy chemicals, the dopamine and all those great chemicals that release come from the rewards. That was one system that I did. But from that, and it took me 12 months to build that balloon.
Wow.
12 months. But what I was doing was that I was reawakening the prefrontal cortex of my brain, is that I was exercising those neurons in my brain and rebuilding them and bundling them together and wiring them and firing them and building and building. And it was really amazing what I was able to do through that. And I found, so I went through the 12-week course, but it's not, brain injuries aren't the type of thing that you fix and then they're done. It doesn't heal that way. You have to continually keep up your practice. You have to be disciplined about your practice, or your brain tends to want to fall back asleep. It wants to go dormant again. So that's where the second part comes in with these, with practice and discipline. And the way I do that is through visualization. And visualization is a way that I take a goal in mind, and I go through a whole process of just going up in I call it the elevator of consciousness, and I go towards a goal and I create things out into my future and I bring them back to now. And that's another great way of using the bundles in your brain, refiring them together, wiring them together, which is fantastic. But a super, super simple thing that people can do is if you go into that spiral of negative thoughts, catch yourself at the first thought. This is so vitally important. If you happen to start going down that rabbit hole of negative thinking or depression or anxiety or worry or things that haven't happened yet or happened in the past, you can literally catch the chemical cascade that happens in your brain by catching your first thought. And this is where the discipline comes in, is being extremely disciplined with your thoughts, catching them right away and replacing them with something that feels good, with music, with I use a lot of hypnosis, with taking a walk, moving your body, moving your blood, feeling good in that moment will help catch those, and you will start to train yourself out of that spiral that can be devastating for the brain temporarily. So it's something that I really want people to understand, that not only can you take yourself to higher places of awareness through your visualization processes, you can also catch yourself from doing a deep dive into the more negative ways of thinking.
Beautiful. Wow.
Got it? Got it? Questions are coming in. I can't see them.
We've got a lot of questions coming in, but I just wanted to sort of revisit some of those concepts there. And it's such a powerful understanding that, unfortunately you've learnt the hard way. But hopefully there's many people on this call, that don't have to go through a traumatic brain injury to harness the principles that you now are able to share with us. And really the neurofeedback that you give us, we have so much science now that supports the fact that we can actually, our brain is so plastic, we can grow new neural pathways all the time. And not even just in a state where we have a disease or an injury that exists, but even in a healthy brain, we can grow these new pathways all the time. And this neurofeedback training is such an important part of this. And it can be as simple as, we don't need to even be growing hot air balloons. It can be simple as just doing new things, getting out of the habits that we've built so much. We've had some great chats this week. We just spoke yesterday actually with Dario Nardi, who's a neuroscientist from UCLA, who talked about different habits and patterns that form and even at childhood experiences, in situations that may not be so great. We have a lot of patterns that replay over and over and over in various parts of our brain. And we now have the possibility to be able to actually shift those patterns and change that, which we have hard science for, which is really exciting. And some of the things that can be helpful, even as simple as brushing your teeth with the opposite hand, you'll find that, and this is something I did a number of years ago. I've certainly done a lot of different experimentation on my brain and body over the years, but by changing brushing teeth with the opposite hand, you'll feel like you're brushing all over the shop. But it takes you a little while to get used to it. But even that is starting to retrain different parts of the brain to get you out of a loop that's been a habitual process. So it's such an important concept you're sharing, Lisa. So thank you so much for your wisdom. And I really wanted to touch on the visualization a bit more and just confirm that, because that's a huge thing that we're now understanding a lot more in science as well, is that how visualization, how us imagining things or picturing things can actually change outcomes. We've known for quite a long time. I remember back even when I was going through university many moons ago, there was a study that fascinated me where we looked at the difference in training one side of the body in a strength training capacity and the influence that would have on the opposite side of the body. And that always fascinated me, how the brain worked from decades ago. And that probably sparked one of my big interests in the neuroscience area, that looking at the fact that the left brain talks to the right side of the body and the right brain talks to the left side of the body. And you can strength train on one side of the body and actually get cross correlation of strength increase on the other side without doing anything. The most important thing that I found after that, the research that came out, was to do with imagination and visualization. And the people that actually, the studies they did, where people would just be literally asleep or lying down on their back and visualize themselves going and doing their bench press or their bicep curls or their strength training, and actually get huge improvements in their strength without even lifting a single finger. And that really opened up a lot of awareness for me, and I was fascinated with that conversation. I remember very clearly, back in those days, it was groundbreaking science. This was probably 15, 20 years ago, and it really has opened up so many conversations about this. And we're even now just starting to understand more about visualizations. And Lisa, have you got anything that you can maybe share that's really been helpful for you in visualizations, and maybe even some of the ways that you sort of go about your day, and sort of how you put things out there and what may show up for you? Something you can share with people at home. And again, this summit's about personalized health. So we're sitting here thinking, wow, we know that everybody's different. We know that different things work for different people in different ways, and there's not one thing that's great for everybody. But some of the concepts are so important for us to harness. And I just didn't want to let this go too far without people getting some tangible things from you, if it's possible.
Pick me. I know. I'm so excited. I want to share.
Please share, Lisa.
Here is a really, really great one. We use this all the time with our 12-year-old daughter. She's a goalie. She's a club soccer goalie. So probably 9% of the game in the goal is mental, as is with so many things that we do. So many things that we do gets created right here. It can create it and it can block it too. So we do this really cool process called quantum jumping. You want to play?
Yes, please.
Okay, so quantum jumping is an imaginary game where you jump into the quantum, into the future, and you act as if everything is happening at that moment. And then you bring that memory back into now. So we can go through this just as a, let's see here. I do it, someone pick a goal. Someone pick a goal that you want to have, or I can do it in a general way, okay?
Okay.
I'll do it in a general way. So we're going to jump into our future as us, as ourselves. And we're going to see, hear, touch, taste, and feel everything that's happening around us as if that is us. We're going to be building neural pathways in the brain, and then we're going to bring that memory back to now. And it's basically remembering your future. So you're bringing the essence, the vibration, the memory, all that back into now. So it already will be built in our brains. So, okay. All right. So I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to imagine a goal or a desired state that you want to be in. In my daughter's case, she's in the goal and she's catching all the balls that come to her. In my state, I'm in a beautiful state of happiness and peace and relaxation. Some people might want to create a signing of a contract for a job, or looking at a bank balance, or feeling really agile in your body and playing a great sport, whatever that is you want to create, okay? We're going to jump into ourselves in that reality in 3, 2, 1, jump. In your mind's eye, imagine yourself in that space. This is you. Look around you and tell me, what do you see? Do you see an incredible view? Do you see the ocean? Do you see grass? Do you see things going by you really fast because you're moving really fast? What do you see around? And then tell me what the people around you are saying. Are they saying, wow, God, you look great? Or congratulations, I knew you could do it. Or congratulations, welcome on board. What are you seeing? Are you seeing an ideal weight on a scale? Are you holding the hand of a loved one that you absolutely adore? Are you holding a child? What are you doing? What are you touching? What voices are around you? And what is your self-talk going to you? Are you saying, I knew I could do this? I'm so glad I followed that intuition. I thought at the time it was the wrong thing to do, but it turned out as the right thing. I'm so glad I followed my instincts. I need to do more of that. What do you taste around you? What does the taste of success taste like? What does it smell like? What does it smell like? And what are you feeling? What is that feeling? And just turn all of that up so much that you're building these great neurons, and they're firing together and wiring together. You're getting bundles that are happening in your brain of this amazing, elated, incredible experience as now. Now bringing all that feeling, the vibration, the essence, and the memory of your dream realized. We're going to jump back into this reality, bringing all the vibrations, the essence, the dreams, the feelings with you back into this reality. 3, 2, 1. Jump. Open your eyes.
Wow.
done is you've effectively just rewired parts of your brain. You see how easy it is? We did that right here in 5 minutes. You can do that. We do it all the time. This is funny. My husband did it once. This is a funny story, but he was sitting in one of those, he's a computer guy, and he was one of those conferences where you get your MCSE degree and all those certifications, right? Womp womp. And so they had a bowl, a drawing with cards in it. And he put his card in and he did a quantum jump. And it was for one of those Surface computers. And he did a quantum leap. And he's like, I see myself, I see my name called, I did that. Put the card in, came to the drawing, and he said, and they're gonna call John. And then the guy said, Davis. And he won the computer. He won the Surface. It was just, it's
Wow.
just, I'm not saying that you can go win the lottery. I'm just saying it's really cool. Sometimes you really can just break down the walls of what we think are reality and just jump into a different state of being and create from that place. It's really cool game. It's fun to play.
That's awesome, Lisa. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I'm sure that we've already got a flood of comments coming through from that exercise and that visualization. It's so powerful. So thank you so much for sharing that. And I've just got we're going to take a few questions as we go throughout this call as well. So if anyone's interested, there's a request to speak button that's just down the bottom. You can pop your hand up and actually join us live on the Hangout, or you can just pop the questions in the chat box and we can answer some questions as we go with Lisa. Lisa, I'm just going to jump to a couple of questions just because of a few comments here, because there's a lot rolling in. Everybody's absolutely loving this so far. We've got many comments, and one question that we've got from Wendy here, which is a great question. I've noticed lately that I'm not as joyful and as happy as I used to be, but I genuinely want to work on it and turn it around and live in gratitude. But I find myself getting angry in traffic and frustrated in crowds, but they are both my reality. So how do I turn that around in real time? That's a question. Do you have any advice that you can share with Wendy on maybe how she can switch between or change that perspective that she sees at the moment?
Mm-hmm. I hear you and I understand what you're talking about, Wendy, because traffic and crowds can have a very high noise level. And especially if you're a sensitive, intuitive, empathic being, you will pick up on all of that. And if you're in any way a healer, then you're going to try to heal all of it. I understand the pressure that can give you in your brain. One of the things that I suggest, actually, I wrote about this in my book, it's called a noise diet. When you have time, not when you're in traffic and not when you're in the crowds, but the time between that, where you have a moment, 5 minutes, to disconnect from the noise and disconnect from all of your technology and get away from your computer and sit in a place that's hopefully got nature around it where you can at least see nature and ground your body. Tether it to the earth, know that it is taken care of, and then just start to release all of that noise out of your head. Because if you can do that and just get your mind to a place of stillness and quiet, and if you can just visualize a flame of a candle and focus on one thing and be in a space of mindfulness and quietness, and if you can really practice that for 5 minutes a day, it grows into 10 and it grows into a wonderful infinite space. Then when you get to the crowd, and when you get to the traffic, you have a sense of stillness and grounding to recall so that the space inside of you is quiet.
Wow, beautiful. Thank you, Lisa, for sharing that. And Wendy, I'm sure that's hopefully addressed a lot of the ways that you can navigate through that. So beautiful. Thank you, Lisa. Lisa, I'd love to, we're going to go through a few more questions actually here as we go, but I just want to jump back to some of the things that you may have really learned, some of the concepts that you've gathered from your journey, some of the things that you've been able to learn and be influenced by with the amazing people that you get to spend time with as well. For people who are listening into this, and there's a lot of people here live, a lot of people here that are going to be watching the replay of this, what sort of understandings or learnings have you been able to gather yourself in terms of the way that certain levels of stress can affect or influence our body, and particularly our brain? And you've got such a great story, and your journey is something that is just fascinating. So if you've got any sort of great tools or tips or techniques that you can share with us about that, I'd love to hear just from your side and your perspective.
Wow, so many. So some of the, I mean, I have a very, very busy lifestyle. I have, you know, I do sometimes 6 or 7 shows a week, which you are familiar with. And, but I really do enjoy what I do, but it can be a hectic pace of driving all that I do. So, one of the things that I learned, which is so many things I've learned from my guests, is about cortisol levels in the body, and that you can manage your stress levels, of course, with your thoughts. And that one thing that I talked about circumventing the negative cascade of chemicals is a really, really good one. Um, and the noise diet is also a really good one. But for preventing the stress, I do this hour by hour um, practice in my day. If I have a really super stressful day and I'm not getting to solutions and things are stacking and piling up, I will do an hourly reset. I mean, literally, sometimes it's an hour by hour reset to pull myself back up and make sure that I'm operating from my higher brain function.
Mm.
Because the lower brain functionality is the stress, competition, judgment, and all of those issues that come around. Those are kind of lower brain thinking, lower frequencies in the brain. They attach to lower to the stress chemicals in the body, and also more of a negative frequency, so that you start to attract all of that. If you can get, just imagine your brain and have, you know, cut this way, and you have a higher brain and you have a lower brain. Okay, if you want to go into the higher states of thinking, into your higher brain thinking, higher consciousness, and living from a place of higher consciousness, then you need to just pick yourself up in that, maybe at the top of every hour, and check in and see, am I operating from the most expanded place of me? Am I operating and am I engaging in higher thought processes, or am I engaging in judgment or gossip or negative thinking or repeating my complaining story over and over again? If you can stop the story, and if you can move yourself to a different conversation of possibilities, then that will help literally change the chemicals in the brain. It helps completely change the chemistry in the brain. And you have to do it with your thoughts again. You have to keep yourself in that higher brain thinking in order to, I mean, it all goes back to the brain chemicals. And understanding brain chemistry will change your life. You don't have to be a scientist. Just understanding that the positive thoughts and thoughts that move you forward, that have solutions, and that are in a perpetual motion. Those are what I call positive thoughts. I'm not talking about floating on a cloud. I'm talking about just something that moves you forward in your day. Helps release and starts to release serotonin and dopamine and norepinephrine and all those great chemicals in your brain. I mean, those things make you, there's like the opiates of the brain. Those are the happy chemicals of the brain. They make you feel good. They make you want to move forward. If you just start with those thought processes, then that'll start to release more of the chemicals in the brain. And I know that you know a lot about this, Matt, and you talk a lot about this as well. It's just important to, I mean, sometimes I find living by brain chemistry is super life changing.
That's beautiful, Lisa. Thank you for sharing that, and it's a fascinating conversation. Some of the things, and as you're aware, I love to talk about the future and about, you know, future health and future medicine and these sorts of concepts. And it's just such an interesting time that we can really understand and harness this knowledge about brain chemistry and about, you know, these happy hormones and these feel good hormones like serotonin and dopamine. Because what we're moving to in the future, when we start to talk about, I won't get too much of a tangent here, but we're talking about the future and what's possible. We're talking about biotechnology that's coming very, very strongly, whether we like it or not. And I talked just recently, actually, with some people about the virtual reality and the fact that you know, there'll be a time in the future, not to the too distant future, where Lisa, you and I might be deciding we're going to go on holidays together, and I'll be sitting in Australia, and you might be sitting in California. We'll decide we want to go to the Bahamas together, and you're in your lounge room, I'm in my lounge room. We'll just pop our headsets on, you know, virtual reality. We'll both go to the Bahamas together, and, you know, with our families, and we'll have some fun. Maybe we're climbing trees, maybe we're sipping cocktails or mocktails or swimming by the pool or whatever we're doing, but we can actually, you know, have a great experience. We can have joy, we can have laughter, we can have all these positive experiences that actually release chemicals in our brain in this state. It gives us a full experience because it's our reality. It's what we see, it's what we feel, it's what we experience in that state. even though our bodies are sitting in the lounge room at home in Australia and California, we're still engaging in an experience that releases these hormones. And so when you can, and the reason why I share that is just for the perspective to know that it's actually what our brain thinks we're doing. It's the thoughts that we actually have that can create our reality, and what we think and what we choose to think about, if it's a positive or it's a negative thought pattern, or a positive or negative perception of some event or circumstance or person that may exist, can actually dictate what our brain chemistry is and can dictate our health. And so it's just a powerful time to be really harnessing the knowledge that we have about our brain chemistry. And even though you don't have to know anything about the science behind it, it doesn't matter, because there's all the scientists that go and do that for us. We just have to know that it's really important that positive thinking and positive perception of events and circumstances and people can really make a huge difference to our health and to our life. So thank you so much for sharing that, Lisa. It's such a strong message. It's beautiful.
That's essentially what neurofeedback does. Is as you're playing these brain games with the computer, it's a program, and the program is designed to release certain chemicals in the brain that start to grow or start to release more frequently, and then change the chemistry in the brain. That's why it's so good for things like depression and anxiety and even sleep. I mean, it's really interesting. If a computer program can do that, then we can do that too.
Absolutely, and it's fascinating to see that. I mean, this summit, we're talking about personalized health, and we talk about a lot of the different other areas in you know, who we are and what we engage in, like the foods we eat, and we look at the way that, you know, foods can actually alter our gene expression, but can also alter our neurochemistry. And there's, you know, great research now emerging that shows that, you know, you can eat certain foods and it will change activity in your brain. It changes the release of the neurochemicals and the hormones that exist to change these things. So neurofeedback is such an important part of it, but be aware for everybody listening that there's so many things that can actually influence your brain activity and the release of chemicals. Very much like the people that you hang out with, you know, can influence significantly the way that your brain works, your health, your happiness, the climate that you live in, the way that your mind works and you perceive certain events, the natural talents that you have, what you do with your time, your hobbies, your work, the exercise that you do or don't do, the sleep you get or don't get. There's so many things now that we're understanding that influences all these sorts of things in our brain chemistry, which really dictates our health. So it's such a powerful time to harness these concepts, and we're so excited about to share this information on this health summit right now. So Lisa, we're just going to jump to a few more questions here, if that's okay. There's some great comments coming through. Everybody's absolutely loving your visualizations and your journeys there, Lisa. So thank you so much. We've got Rebecca's Sophia's asking, wow, so powerful. Lisa's voice is such a loving guidance. I notice my body naturally doing things, e.g. yawning, as it does when my nervous system is readjusting. So thanks for sharing there, Sophia. Wendy says, thank you. She is so lovely and her work is so important. And Jan says, love this, a total mind check on the hour. That's beautiful.
Totally.
Great advice coming through, and there's so much there. Jan asks, she says from earlier in the call, thank you so much for bringing up Wayne Dyer, sorry. And do you have any recommendations on how to access what you've learned by having a brain injury without actually having one? And Jan obviously referring to without actually having a brain injury as opposed to not having a brain. That's my sense of humor for the day.
Yes, I get asked that question a lot, and I want to make sure to always say, please do not think that you need to have a brain injury in order to access these different states of consciousness. And that's why I try to make it extremely practical for people. And you know, let me go back to Wayne for a second, because he really was such an incredible mentor of mine, and I miss him dearly. But I also know that he's with me in so many different ways, and all of us in so many different ways. He taught me he taught me so much. I was listening to a recent interview that I did with him about parallel universes. And this is one of Wayne's fascinations. He was always asking me about this near-death experience and how I got into these, you know, what it was like on the other side. And now he knows. But what I learned, and I'll loop back to your question about accessing states of consciousness and so forth without having the TBI. But what I learned is that our belief systems are so strong in changing our outcomes to things. And in most of what we do is created with our minds. Most of what we do. So that's why I'm so careful about belief system, about checking in with your thought patterns and so forth. Wayne taught us that the power of intention, when you have an intention and you really focus on it and then you allow it to expand, it starts to create this coherent field around you and starts to align other things in the universe and attract those things to you. We found this later out through neuroscience. Joe Dispenza talks about the same exact thing. When you create a thought pattern in the brain, it creates a protein in the cell, and the cell goes to the body and goes out into a frequency throughout the body, and then starts to attract that like attracts like, similar frequency, and brings it back into your field. So when you start to research this information that's readily available to anyone, then you start to really change your thought patterns. You can start to access different levels of your own consciousness. I'm not, again, talking about going to another planet. I'm talking about right here, right now, in this world, in this reality. Accessing these different thought patterns and belief systems of your own and realizing what is possible is the way that you can access the different states of consciousness. It's just a state shift. It's like if you were to go on vacation and there's a hair that's, there we go. If you were to go on vacation, and when you go on vacation, this is, I call it vacation syndrome. Everybody goes on vacation and they're like, wow, I could live here. Why do you think you say that? Why do you think, oh, I could live here? You look around. Because you're so relaxed and you've disconnected and unhooked from the stresses of the day, of your work, home, routine, whatever it is. And you just love that space and think that that's the place that you can go and live and be happy. And that's not true. You can bring the vacation to you. Moments throughout your day, you can have a staycation. You can do things that you can change in your environment to vacate in your brain from what you perceive as stress to what you can perceive as relaxation or as enjoyment or as joy or even just changing. Here's a phrase I have on my desk right now. This is the one I just printed out. It says, everything comes to me with ease, joy, and glory. I just happened to have printed this out because I read this. It was by Gary Douglas from the Access Consciousness group. And I just printed that out and put it in purple ink and put it in front of my desk just today because those are the types of things that just keep me lifted, just keep me up. Yeah. So did I answer that question?
You've answered about 17 questions in there, Lisa. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing.
Tangent there. Sorry.
It's beautiful, and there's a lot more questions coming in, and we're going to move through them as much as we can. It's yeah, it really is just such an amazing conversation, and you brought up a lot of important patterns there about us, with our beliefs and how strong they are, and we often talk a lot about the mind, and we've got some great sessions, over this summit with people, with experts in the mind. Actually, we've got Angie Johnsey coming up, I think, tomorrow morning. And we've got, no, I can't remember when we've got people coming up. There's too many people, but we've got people coming up at many different times throughout the way. We've got Morty Lefko, who's actually talking to us about beliefs.
Oh, fantastic. Morty is fantastic. Yes.
He's looking at a lot of different ways we can reprogram our minds and different belief systems and how they actually impact us a lot. And I really enjoy conversations about that, and about how what we believe will actually be what determines our emotional status, and our response and our emotions determine a lot of our behaviors and actions, and hence our reality. So it really is a powerful understanding when we can actually be in that space.
Another visualization process that I do that I love is going back to, and Morty talks a lot about these decisions that we make, the perceptions that we have as children when we make these decisions about our life that change the trajectory of our life. Where if somebody says, labels you as fat, you make that decision the rest of your life that you are fat, and then you live your life by that decision, or that you're, that you aren't loved or aren't liked, and we take those and we put them on us as labels. I go through a visualization process where I go back into that turning point of your life where you made that decision about yourself that wasn't true, that somebody else labeled onto you, that you took on as your truth. And you walked through life and made all your decisions based on that. And we turn that around and take the learnings from it. We go to a higher place and look at it from a bird's eye perspective on a timeline, and we preserve the learnings from that particular event. If that hadn't happened, you wouldn't have moved into personal development or made such a decision to help other people. I mean, there's some good that had come out of that experience. And then we are grateful for those learnings. And then we reframe the learnings going into the future. And that's a really powerful exercise of reframing your past and the decisions that we make about ourselves in turning points of our life.
Wow, beautiful, Lisa. So powerful. There's so many amazing tips and techniques here. I'm hoping that everybody's really understanding the power of what Lisa's talking about here. And again, this is such an important summit for helping people understand and navigate through their own situations, understanding what's right for them, and to really dig down deep into some of these concepts we've spoken about today already can really help you shift that. And even alone, some of these visualizations and journeys that you've taken us on, Lisa, have just been so powerful. So thank you so much for being here and sharing a lot of your wisdom with us today. I'm going to jump to a couple more questions coming through if we can. And we've actually got... Here we go. Everybody's really understanding the power of what Lisa's talking about here. And again, I'm just going to mute Shannon there for a sec. We've just got Shannon who's joined us. Shannon, maybe if you've got external speakers, you may need to let them go. But Shannon's on the call here. Shannon, if you can just unmute yourself and feel free to ask any questions you like to Lisa. And just let us know where you're dialing in from, Shannon. Just unmute yourself. You have a mute button somewhere.
On the upper part of your screen.
Perfect.
Bring your mouse up there, you'll find it.
Shannon, you're live. You're on air.
Oh, that's weird. Mine's muted too.
Shannon, can you hear us? Okay, we can't hear you. Unfortunately, you're still muted, Shannon. If you can just click the unmute button. There we go.
Is that working?
Beautiful. We can hear you, Shannon.
Hi.
How are you, Shannon? Where are you calling in from? And please feel free to engage with Lisa and ask any question you like.
Hi.
I'm calling in from Calgary, actually. And one of the questions that I have for you, I work in energy medicine, and a lot of my clients dealing with anxiety, depression, and brain chemistry imbalances, they have a really hard time accessing those really positive thoughts. Like even when we work with them and they have a really hard time to go there in the first place in order to create that visualization, how can I help them with that?
Okay, in that case, you need a little bit of external training. I'm a big fan of hypnosis. I have on my phone downloaded several different hypnosis MP3s. And I will plug in my headphones and I will listen to them before I go to sleep. There's a great one for weight loss that I listen to that helps to, not weight loss, but to gain power over cravings. And it's great. So I listen to that before I go to sleep. I will listen to one for success. I listen to one that's for sleep. And there's so many different people. The two that I love, John Assaraf does an amazing program. It's called The Inner Game of, I'm not sure the name of it, but John Assaraf, and it's Assaraf. He has an amazing program. His brain entrainment technologies are amazing. On the more simple scale, there's Rick Collingwood, who's Australian, and on his website, Rick Collingwood, he has MP3 downloads for $7. Many of them are free on YouTube that you can just download onto your phone. In that case, I would go for something external. Hypnosis is amazing. It's just brain entrainment. Some of the technologies out there have embedded beats, binaural beats, things that really allow the brain to get into a theta state and relax. That sometimes don't rely on yourself for a while to change your thinking. Go after something that can get you into the theta state, relax yourself, and then you can start to come up with your thoughts around that. I'm a big fan of that.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome. I hope that helped.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Shannon, thank you so much for joining us on the call. I'm actually just going to eject you from the conversation here, nothing personal. Thank you very much for coming in. Excellent. Lisa, thank you so much for navigating us through that. Thanks again, Shannon, for joining us. I'm just going to jump to a question here from Julie. Lisa, I had an extreme stress period a few years ago. I suddenly gained weight. I feel really great now, but the weight is still hanging on. What do you think is the best thing I could do to let my body let go of the pounds?
Okay, there's a couple of things. you can join pH 360, which is an amazing program, really, that can help you personalize your own weight loss program. The other thing that I am a fan of is detoxifying and cleansing. And the reason is, and I've been doing some research on this lately about these obesogens. These are these genes that are in the body that hold on to toxins. Toxins are released out of the bloodstream so that we're not in a constant state of poisoning, and they are dumped into the fat to be protected. And these toxins get stored in the fat in our body. And that's why sometimes the brain, that is made up of primarily fat, gets so, quote, foggy, is because of the toxins that are stored into the fat, into the brain. Dr. Daniel Amen talks a lot about this. So detoxifying is simple. You can do it through cleansing, juice cleanses. There's several different types of cleanses out there, but something that really starts to get to releasing the toxins in the body, because those particular toxins, as I've learned, trick you into craving foods that supply the energy back to those cells. So fatty foods, oily foods, sugary foods, those foods that are quick burning fuels that go right into the fat of the cell and allow those cells to sustain themselves. That's why a lot of, quote, diets don't work, because sometimes your body is tricking, the toxins are tricking you into staying fat. So the idea is, and Matt, back me up on this, is to get some of the toxins out.
Yeah, absolutely, Lisa, and thanks for sharing that. I think one of the biggest understandings we're hoping to bring for this whole summit is how different everybody is, and people hold toxins in different ways in their body. Even understanding a lot about gene expression now, we know that there's a lot of different ways that people may be more prone to methylation or oxidation or glycation in their bodies, and really understanding who you are and how your body responds is the first step, because once you understand that, then you can have a conversation about what's best to do for you. Without that, it's just guesswork. It's just shot in the dark, and hopefully that, hoping that what worked for someone else might work for you. So this is where a major sponsor, pH 360, is really bringing a lot of this to a tangible outcome. I really encourage everybody listening, if you haven't checked it out, check out pH360.me, and you'll find that this is the best, most advanced way that we're measuring gene expression these days, to look at what's right for you, for your body to be happy and healthy. And it really is a great tool to help you, Julie, with that great question about helping shift some extra pounds. But it's not really about that even. It's about knowing how to get your cells healthy on the inside, and then you'll just naturally return to your body weight that's most natural for you. So, but there's many other things to consider just outside of foods and toxicity. For some people, moving their body more in different ways will be what helps release that toxicity that's there for them. For other people, it's actually having more of a laugh and being in social situations. For other people, it's doing things that are very enjoyable without any stress around them. For other people, it is eating the right foods very specifically. And for some people, it's actually doing a balance of all of those things. And we all have these different epigenetic areas that influence us at any point in time. And if you can know about who you are and know about the balance in all these areas, then you can navigate towards a place of health. So thanks for sharing, Lisa, and thanks for the great question, Julie. That's phenomenal.
Lifestyle, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but yeah, and that's one of the big things we've learned as well from science, is that our environment and our lifestyle have such a huge impact on our health. It was only, I guess even not that many years ago where we were still under the impression that our genes determined what our health was going to be, and now we understand that our genes only play 5 to 10% of a factor in our disease states, and the rest of it is environment and lifestyle. It really is an amazing distance that we've come to understand epigenetics and how this can influence our gene expression, which then opens the conversation to say, well, what things do I need to do to be happy and healthy for me? Hence, this summit is all about personalized health and knowing that you are unique, you are different to every single person on this planet. You need to be able to understand that what's right for you will be different to everybody else, and that really is why we're here, to be able to share some of this information, which Lisa's done an amazing job of today, to be able to share a lot of different ways that we can access our, release some happy chemicals in our brain, start to visualize things, do neurofeedback. There's so many different ways that we can start to now be in control of our health and control of our life. So, Lisa, I'm just going to jump to one last question for today from Sophia. We've got Lisa. How are these different brain entrainment techniques for success, cravings, etc., that you mentioned, different from each other? What is it about our brain that may require different methods to tap into these different areas of life? Great question, Sophia.
Great question. I'm so interested in brain entrainment technologies. I'm actually doing my own because I found them so useful, so incredibly useful. There's different technologies that are on the technical level that are great for getting the brain, as I said, into a theta state. You can use the binaural beats, you can use different frequencies, different tones, different. There's so many different great technologies that. But bottom line is, what it does is it helps you get your conscious mind and the mind chatter offline and really allow the unconscious mind to surface and to be more open. And those frequencies start to open that unconscious mind. And it's simply a matter of just getting the conscious mind offline slightly. Unconscious is always there. It's operating 90-something% of our behavior. So then when you get the conscious mind chatter offline, the different affirmations that are within the technology, and that's why I've studied it so much, because if I've got my unconscious mind wide open, I want to know what's going in. So I listen. Here's my trick. I listen to some of these MP3s, some of these recordings, wide awake, while I'm doing email, while I'm doing dishes, whatnot, so I can actually hear the affirmations first. And then I will know exactly and approve what is going into the, it's like some of them were in the negative. They were saying, I want to lose that, or they went into a negative pre-framing of things. Don't want that, let go of those. You know, I'm able to pre-screen them in the waking state so that I chose those two that I use on a personal basis that have been very effective for me. And I'm also so crazy about this, and I'm doing one myself because I'm really specific about what goes into the unconscious mind.
Yeah, and which is so important, Lisa. It's so powerful. Lisa, just before we wrap up the call, how can everybody listening find out more about you? How can we engage with you a bit more? Is there a site or a link that people can go and visit to get more information about what you're up to at the moment? Anything you can share with us, because it's just been such a powerful understanding this whole call. So thank you so much for everything you've shared with us.
Absolutely. You can go to my website, which is theawareshow.com/guide, GUIDE. And that will actually take you to in an interview that I did with a neuroscientific researcher, Dawson Church, who's great, talking about the power of the mind. And also there's visualization processes that I have on there that are available. My book has the visualizations in them as well. So the name of my show is called theawareshow.com/guide. Then you can find out everything there.
Beautiful. Thank you, Lisa. And please, I encourage you to go check it out. Lisa's absolutely amazing, as you found out today, and has a wealth of information and knowledge to share with everybody. So, Lisa, thank you so much for giving up your time to be here to share your amazing knowledge with everybody who's here. Your story and journey is absolutely phenomenal. And there's so many take-home messages for everybody to apply into their lives, no matter where they're at in their journey. So thank you so much for being here to expand our consciousness and awareness about our brain and about our mind and about stress, and about the fact that we're in control of our lives, and we get to choose what shows up in our reality. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for you all for being here, for investing the time into your health. I hope you got so much out of this show. I certainly did. And please go ahead and check in on the Facebook page for all the upcoming details and the schedules. Please don't forget to subscribe to YouTube. You get access for free to all the videos, interviews that we're doing this whole summit series. And the last thing, please share this with your friends and family, those that need to hear it most. It's 100% free, and this information is just for you on your journey. So thank you so much for being here, Lisa. Thank you again for joining us, and look forward to talking to you all again soon.
Yes, for sure. Thank you so much. Really, you're so kind and so compassionate. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you, Lisa, and good night, everybody.
Bye-bye.